There are a lot of different types of games out there. There are games that are released with the system, they're released at launch, there are ones that display the capabilities of the system, ones that are ports of arcade games, and then there are ones that are just plain hard. Of course, sometimes there are games that do multiple things, like Strider for the Genesis. Not only is this one of the more difficult games on the Genesis, but it's also a port of the classic arcade game, and it was created to show off the capabilities of the system. It was the first 8 megabit cartridge. It's hard, graphically impressive, and one hell of a game. So, for the hell of it, we're gonna play Strider for the Genesis until we win. Strider is one of the more beloved games on the Genesis, and with good reason. Bright graphics, great controls, awesome gameplay, and a fantastic home port of a popular arcade game. Overall, this game is awesome. It's also hard. Really hard. There are parts of this game that are so frustrating that even the more hardcore of Strider fans have to put the controller down before they throw the system out the window. There isn't a whole lot you've got going against you in this game. The game itself is programmed very well, and the port is very true to the arcade version, with only a few minor differences. The biggest problem you'll face in this game is the lag. There are parts in this game that are so graphically intensive that the Genesis cannot keep up, and it simply slows down, much like some of the games on the NES. Normally, this wouldn't be a problem. However, the major problem is that when this happens, you basically can't control Strider. You're left at the mercy of the game to let you live. Fortunately, this slowdown doesn't happen all too often. This game is super hard. You get about 3 hits to stay alive. After that, you're dead. Die enough times, and you have to continue from the beginning of the stage. Run out of continues, and it's game over. Fortunately, there are some things you can do to avoid running out of continues. In a platforming game, you normally pay attention to the enemies on the screen, but in Strider, your main objective should be to avoid the projectiles. These things will be the death of you. You need to master how you move in this one. Jumping isn't as natural as it could be, because this game is all about style. The more stylish you are, the better you're playing it. Attacking is kind of strange. When you attack, you get a very large slash animation on screen, but there's a trick to hitting enemies with it. You've got to hit your enemies with the tip of the slash. Platforming is a little strange until you get used to it. You can climb on walls and on the ceiling. And you'll need this skill to get past several difficult sections of the game. Bosses aren't that big of a problem. They can be beaten rather easily once you learn their patterns, and every boss does have a pattern that's easy to figure out. Alright, with that out of the way, let's get talking about this short but oh so sweet game. Area 1 is a relatively tame level. The biggest problem here is that there's a lot of enemies and projectiles on screen, and it's only the first level. Basically, it starts you off with a lot of difficult stuff you need to avoid, and it doesn't let up. The easiest way past some of the enemies is to either slide and destroy them with your sliding kick, or you can melee attack non-stop. The first major obstacle you'll come across are some drills that drop down from the ceiling. If you simply take your time and wait for the drills to drop, you can simply walk under them without taking much damage. After that, you face off against your first major boss, some angry muscular dude. There's not much to this guy. Simply slash away at him until he's dead. Just remember to stand under the first platform, otherwise you'll get burned by the flames that fall down from the sky when the boss dies. The next section is pretty tame. All you really need to do is move to the right. After that, you'll come up on a machine that fires lasers that bounce off the walls. If you duck in the right spot, the lasers will never hit you, and you can wail away at the robot without any problems. Kill it and drop down the hole on the right, then quickly move. You'll get nailed by a couple of bullets, but it's okay as long as you don't stand still. Move to the right and you'll face off against your first tough boss. This mecha snake thing is pretty difficult to get past if you don't know what you're doing. Simply jump on top of his back and hit him in the face to hurt him. You'll have to move around to keep from getting hit by his front weapon, but you should be able to take him out quickly. From there, you'll move on to the second area. The first snowy part isn't too much of a problem. Just move forward until you hit the falling blocks. Now, I was an idiot when I recorded this, and you'll see me struggling to get past them. Standing there and attacking the blocks doesn't solve anything. Instead, you should just slide under them, instead of hoping to get lucky like I did. After you figure that one out, you'll face off against Mecha Kong, another boss. He's not too bad, as long as you remember one important fact. His metallic fist hurts. Just keep hitting him and avoiding his fist to take him out. Once you do kill him, however, you'll need to move fast and grab onto the ceiling because the fire will rain down from the sky and you'll die. Keep moving, and eventually you'll climb up a shaft to a room with several moving steel drums. There's only one obvious way past this section. You need to climb on the drums that aren't lined with spikes. After that, you'll face off against some annoying flying dude. He's pretty easy to take down. All you have to do is jump forward and slash. Otherwise, you could just wait for him to come down and hit him in the face. Once you've dispatched the flying bugger, run forward and down the hill. Use your momentum to jump over the gap into the next part of the level. You'll need to climb up and pass the lightning storm. This is a bit more dicey than you think. Your best option here is to memorize where the lightning strikes and simply wait it out. It's pretty difficult, but the pattern doesn't change. Just take your time and plan your moves out in advance, and you should be alright. The next part is the first flying stage, and my god is it hard. You'll need to stay on this weird helicopter for the duration and avoid enemies and bombs landing on you. The helicopter moves oddly too. It doesn't move left and right with you, but it does move up and down. The longer you stand on it, the lower it goes. You gain altitude by simply jumping up. Jumping up onto other helicopters is a lot harder than you'd think. You need to time your jumps carefully and melee your way past the enemies that appear on each helicopter. Eventually, you'll get high enough to board an airship. The layout itself is easy enough to get through, just a couple of jumps and you've basically gone through the entire section. What's hard is the turret and the 3 ninja bitches that constantly whoop your ass. This section can be downright mean. What you need to do is destroy the turret by hanging under it and using your slash attack. Then you can move forward and take out the ninjas. Now they bounce around a lot, but without the help of the turret, they're a piece of cake. Once they're dealt with, simply move forward, destroy the door, and use 1 slash to kill the guy inside. Congratulations, you've just made your way to Area 3. Area 3 takes place on another flying ship. The first section can be a bit of a pain, especially if you're low on health. There are a lot of bullets flying around, so you'll need to move carefully to avoid taking too much damage. The second section is more confusing than it is difficult. Simply move to the right and up to get to the next section, which is significantly more difficult to get through than the previous one. In this section, you've got to face off against a robot and a wall closing in on you. Melee the hell out of the robot, then quickly move forward and start climbing the wall. If you climb fast enough, you'll be able to leap between the 2 walls closing together to move up to the stage. If you climb fast enough, you'll be able to leap between the 2 walls closing together to move on to the rest of the stage. If you're too slow, however, you'll be crushed and instantly killed. What a pleasant way to die. The next part of the level features more robots and spring-loaded death traps. Whatever you do, do not move to the platforms on the right. Instead, you need to move down the path. Otherwise, you'll spring a death trap and be flung off the side of the ship. The next section involves ceiling climbing and rotating gravity. This part isn't too hard to get through. Instead of being a section that's designed to kill you, it's really meant to introduce you to the gravity mechanic in the game. And yes, gravity changes in this game, and you'll need to master it now, otherwise you'll die later on. Once you go far enough to the right, you'll be able to jump down from the ceiling into a large chamber and fight against a gravity boss. I don't really understand how this boss works. You see, occasionally you'll get sucked into this boss's gravity vortex and be spun around him, only to eventually be pounded into a wall, costing you 1 life point. The thing is, I don't know what triggers the event. Either it's something I'm easily missing or it's random. In either case, I don't really know why it does what it does. However, I do know that beating it is essentially a battle of attrition. Wail away at the floating orb thing until it dies, or until you do. Your best option is to jump towards the orb and try to get sucked into its vortex as close as possible. That'll give you the advantage of being able to constantly hit it while you're being spun in a circle. After it's dead, quickly move down the gap and forward, then grab onto the ceiling and move forward. If you're not quick, the exploding ship will catch up with you and you'll die. This should bring you to the next area, which looks like it takes place in some kind of Amazonian ruin. I don't know. You need to run forward and down the hill to gain enough momentum to run up the quickly degrading bridge. Too slow and you'll fall to your death. Move forward and you'll find yourself at one of the most annoying parts of the game, the trees with rubber limbs. The strategy here is to jump on the edge of the rubber trees and use them to launch you in the air. You'll have to avoid Amazon women, their boomerangs, and their axes, and believe me, this is easier said than done. If you take your time, you'll be torn apart by their attacks, and if you move too fast, you'll run into the enemies and die. If you keep moving fast enough to avoid being attacked, but slow enough to where you can avoid oncoming attacks, you should be okay. However, You're probably going to have to play through this part quite a few times to nail down the correct speed. If you keep moving forward, you'll eventually come up to a part with dinosaurs. The easiest way through here is to stay on the ground, not on the dinosaur's back, to avoid getting absolutely slaughtered by the incoming pterodactyls. Once you reach a large gap you can't jump across, trust me, you'll fall down this gap more than once, so you'll know what I'm talking about. You'll need to wait for the dinosaurs to stop moving, then jump on the leftmost dinosaur's head so you can jump across to the rightmost dinosaur's tail. That is the weirdest sentence I've ever spoken in my life. Once you do that, you'll have to face off against a dragon robot, and this guy can kiss my ass. He has a simple pattern. He'll attack you with his claw, shoot out a fireball, and then hit you with his claw again. So it's a simple pattern. Claw, fireball, claw. The only time you really get to attack him is right after his second claw attack. He'll jump into the air, and you can follow him on his way down to get a couple shots in on his head. Retreat, repeat, and kill this badass. Now, the next area sucks. You're gonna die. A lot. The first section is a bullet hell nightmare to get through. I only have one piece of advice for you. Don't die. The number of enemies and bullets on screen can get kind of crazy. What you need to do, sadly, is probably die a lot to learn the pattern and placement of the enemies. The second part, though, is even worse. You're upside down for the entire section. This makes what would be an otherwise easy platforming section incredibly difficult. Essentially, what you need to do is keep moving quickly through the level to make your upside down jumps. If you don't jump, you'll fall up a pit and die. Ouch, that concept hurt my head. Aside from not jumping at the right point, if you don't move fast enough, you'll actually make your jumps at exactly the wrong time and smack your head into a moving drill, which will kill you. Oh, and by the way, the final part of this section is just nasty. Just look at it. I mean, what evil monstrosity cooked this up? After that platforming nightmare, you'll be forced to take on yet another gravity-altering orb boss. The same strategy applies here as with the first one, getting close enough to hit it, then wail away when you get sucked into the gravity vortex. After beating the orb, you'll be faced with another video game gauntlet. First up, you need to get past the laser shooting robot again, only this time you need to kneel in a very specific spot to survive. After that is a relatively mild platforming section, but after that you'll have to face a string of bosses that will make you tear your hair out. The first boss is the robotic Donkey Kong. He would be easy if Godzilla didn't keep harassing you from behind. Yes, you have to kill Donkey Kong while Godzilla is harassing you. Take care of Godzilla and then take out the fake Kong like you normally would. After that, you'll be forced to take on Mr. Robot Dragon again. He has the same pattern this time around as he did before. The only difference is that you don't have the rubber trees to take advantage of. So you need to put your finger pressing skills to the test to take him out. Just remember that you basically can't hit him until he starts to jump away from you. Jump up when he's in the air, and then attack his head. After that, you'll face off against the robotic snake again. He's a bit more difficult this time around because you need to ride on his back and attack him while he progressively moves up the level. All you really need to do here is ride on his back and jump up when he moves up the screen. Keep attacking his head, but don't attack it too much. You actually want to kill him at the right time. Kill him too soon and you'll fall down an endless pit. Kill him too late and he'll kill you. Essentially what you need to do is perfectly time, well, killing the boss. It'll take some practice. Keep it up though, and eventually the gauntlet will end with one of the most ridiculously easy boss fights in the world. Seriously, just jump up and wail away at this guy for a split second and then he explodes. Strider is a fantastically difficult game. The only problem I have with it is the end boss. It's way too easy. In fact, the end boss of the past few games have been, well, rather weak, haven't they?